that, you know what, and this is a conversation that we were having with you and the feedback that you gave us last week, that you didn't feel involved in this particular process, and that maybe government is planning blindly without putting your perspectives into play and actually in paper, and let's not even talk about implementation. And so today on the show to break that down for us is Mr. Julius Mukunda, the ED of Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, viewers.
Rita.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, how are you?
Yes.
Now, as we start this conversation, first of all, it is in this very year that we had the Minister of Finance talk about how our economy was going. Anyone remember that? Well, guess we had that conversation, and that is in regards to our public debt management. We cannot not talk about it. And also the Youth Livelihood Program. As of now, one would say, what more do you need? They have been given this, you have been given that, but a few things do not seem to be adding up here and there in regards to what the government is giving off and what we are receiving.
Yes.
Yes. So let's go through that first.
I mean, the huge part.
Yeah.
I think it is in the context of saying that actually our economy has been growing. I mean, certain countries, their economies are not growing, they're just, sliding back. Our economy has been growing. We are now at 4.3%. Previously, we were in threes. Of course, that we have a target of 7%, we haven't achieved it, but it has been growing. So from that perspective, I think the minister is correct to say that. And also is that there's other fundamental things. Inflation has remained at a single digit. Let me tell you, it's extremely very difficult to maintain inflation at a single digit in the country where you have more exports, more imports and less exports. So there are fundamentals in this economy that you find that we are still very strong in terms of that. And also the fact that something very surprising, that we are very transparent. It's surprising, but we are. If you want to access information in this country, certain information in this country would not access 5 years ago, would not get it. But I think there is one thing I think we are trying to get comfortable with, which we are not supposed to be. That our debt, that we are okay, and the minister was assuring us. And I can tell you is that Japan has got a 283% debt to GDP ratio. They should be so worried, but nobody is worried in Japan simply because they know their country has the capacity to pay back. But for us, why are we worried about this debt issue? I think what we are worried about is that, number one, there are loans that we have contracted and they have not been disbursed, around 17.3 trillion. But on those loans, we are paying almost like 2.2 trillion in terms of servicing them, and yet we are not using them. Number two is that we are spending in terms of losses, because you see, for us, we contract loans in dollars and other international currencies. So we need to convert our shillings into dollars. The Auditor General recent report has told us that we made a loss of almost like 2.4 trillion to do that. Yeah. Above all that is that interest rate payments have increased over time. Last year 2.5, now we're on 2.9. Now last year it was the third largest share of the entire budget was going to interest rate payment. This year it is the second largest share. God knows what is going to happen to the next financial year. Those indicators distress the way we are spending on other sources. For example, entirely in the whole country, all referral hospitals budgets have been cut. Education sector budget has been cut. Water budget has been cut by almost 45%. So when you tell me that I shouldn't worry about debt, then I begin to say, okay, I think let's revisit this question of not getting worried about debt and see what we can do.
But the Minister of Finance seems to have a totally different opinion, and of course I'll ask you this. Then where do you think he's finding his basis to actually outrightly say that, you know what, we should not yet be worried because we have not yet gone to the 50% threshold in terms of debt? So where is he basing his facts from, given that we have all this, kind of descriptions with regards to our current situation?
I agree with the minister to say we should not get worried because we have not reached 50% threshold. But for me, I would say that that is not an indicator that should make us comfortable. these other fundamentals should make us very, very uncomfortable, because our ability to pay back is going to be questioned in terms of how we are going to mobilize enough resources to pay. Look at how much money we are collecting for Uganda Revenue Authority. And we are saying that we are going to collect 18 trillion. Out of that, 2.9 trillion will definitely be swept away by debt. Right. Remember also that we have what we call debt refinancing. Debt refinancing in basic term means that today I have not paid. I have your debt, and I acknowledge that, and I'm supposed to pay at the end of this financial year, but I'm not able to. So we renegotiate. Can I pay next year? And we say it's okay. We accept. That is okay. It's in business. It is okay. But if I begin to negotiate with you every year and the debt is increasing, because last year it was 5 trillion, now it is 6 trillion.
Right.
God knows what's going to happen the other year.
And the exchange rates are not getting better.
And the exchange rates are not getting better. Then you begin to, but you have the capacity to maybe back at the end of the day. So we don't want to be in that particular situation as a nation. And I think for me there are causes for this. Number one is we need to open up their own construction process. How do we contract these particular loans? Let us open up. We have some bogus projects, for example. Those projects would not come in if citizens and civil society organizations were participating in how these loans are acquired. Parliament, for example, need not come to approve loans at the end of it. They should also start at the process of how these projects are created. Why would you, for example, sign a project proposal for a road that has no visibility study? In this country, it takes not less than a year to finish a visibility study for a road project. But for you, you sign off a road today, and it's going to start, you think the road is going to start tomorrow. That can't happen. So we need to ensure that we have ready-made projects that once you get money, people can start running to implement these types of projects.
So with the money coming through, if the processes are done right, as you talk about the fact that whatever we're doing in this year will eventually have an effect on the next year.
Definitely.
And next year, as we have been told, 2020 holds a few things, huge things for our country as Uganda. Yes? We're supposed to hit a particular status, but do you think we're going to hit it? Even the laugh alone says a few things.
But as I've said, it's good to have hope. You can't be a hopeless person. That's a very bad state. We must have hope and we must think big. So if it means I want to be a middle status country, let us work towards that. But also we should step back and deal with reality. Are we likely to reach there?
What is the reality?
One simple fact. The National Development Plan or the National Planning Authority tells us that to hit the target of a middle income status country, we must have been growing at 7% of the GDP ratio.
Which we're not.
We are at 4.3.
Right.
So as planners, you go back behind and say, okay guys, we're at 4.3, okay, what can we do to see whether we can reach 5 or 6 and see what can happen. So the reality puts you back and say, okay, let's see what can be done.
Let me ask you a question. If already we've been making all these mistakes, because you've called them bogus projects, so to speak.
We have a bogus project, which I usually talk about, was about increasing mukende consumption in Uganda. And we borrowed the money for it.
So with regards to this, you call what you call bogus kind of projects that you borrow money to actually execute. Then who is selling who? Who is, kind of cheating who? Because you know that by the time this, loans are approved, it goes through a rigorous process and even goes through Parliament. So do we say that them that are actually mandated to put that pen to paper are actually ill-skilled or ill-equipped with regards to better negotiations of these contracts?
I think because of too much appetite to spend, we have negated the proper processes of our own contraction. To the extent that somebody can sit on his laptop or her laptop and a national project is done and finished. Yet for a national project to take place, there are certain mechanisms and measures you have to put in place. Have you done the right consultations, for example? Have you done a visibility study? Have you done a cost-benefit analysis, whether which can be done, what cannot be done, how much is it going to cost? Have you costed it properly to see whether the cash flow the country has can be able to fit into financing this particular project? Some projects have got conditions like pre-financing. Do we have the right resources? Are they planned for in the budget? So, because of too much appetite to spend, also including also political interference, then you find that things just can't be done. And look, I'm yet to look at the oil projects, how far they have really gone, because I remember we spent money without visibility studies, and they told us that work will go on as visibility studies are also going on. But if you look at the way I've been managing projects really, look at just Northern Bypass really. We were supposed to have completed this project in 2017. Now we are in 2019, and we are not seeing its completion coming. So for me, those are some of the fundamentals that we can improve. We can improve project management in this country. It's a very big challenge. We need to invest in human resource capacity. We need to ensure that by the time we sign off a project, we are ready to implement that particular project.
But Mr. Mukunda, is it that you don't know? Is it that you don't have enough consultants? Is it that the process pretty much is not, so much, rigorous or tight enough to ensure that you make the right decisions? Or is it a question of corruption as well?
Corruption also comes in, definitely, that we just can't rule it out. You have Katos. We've lost the whole of it completely. But I think is lack of proper preparation is what is really killing most of these projects. So when a technocrat sits and says, I need a year to do a visibility study, then the politician comes and says, please, I need this study yesterday. That will definitely kill the whole process. Or any chances that this project would have survived is killed at the beginning, at the start of that particular project. So we need to provide enough capacity to our technocrats, give them enough space so they can be able to make the right decisions. But also I think one of the biggest challenges we face in this country is that our inability to adhere to the best practices. Why would you give a sector money that it doesn't have a strategic plan? Because the National Development Plan is there. It tells us the key projects are supposed to be implemented in this country. And a sector that's supposed to lead on that particular project has no plan at all, or strategic plan. But as a country, we keep on paying, giving them that kind of money. And I think that's fundamentally wrong.
Right.
It really delays us from achieving a middle status country that we are talking about.
We're almost there. But as we talk about all the processes, the planning, where it's failing us here and there, let's take it back to 2013 and then 2014 for a bit, when the Youth Livelihood Program came through. And how it was supposed to empower the youth. Now we're in 2019, and right now, as of 2019-2020, the Cabinet has amended a few things in regards to it. Can we say that maybe they're revisiting a few things?
You see, I didn't know the government has got those in very serious, it's so powerful until they did this particular work. But I wish they would utilize that power and authority in so many other failing projects.
Besides just the Youth Livelihood Program.
It has its own problems, like any other government program. But this move is just cementing. Now we have buried it completely. Because you can't say you are shifting entirely the whole money and taking it to State House. 3 implications. Number one, it is setting a bad precedent that all failing projects in this country will be managed by State House. Everybody say, let's go to State House. That's very bad. It's a bad precedent. State House, we know. It's a fact. It is a deep. You will never demand accountability from the State House.
Why not?
You cannot.
Why not?
Why can't we do
that? It is just shrouded under the president, and anything about it can be a secret expenditure, classified expenditure. It's very difficult. Third is that even when the president is doing it in the right way, it is ordered to be a political project. Even if it is not, because it is headed by the president, because for the president, even if he gives an envelope to a poor lady to go to hospital, they will think the president is looking for votes. So And considering what we've been doing, carrying sacks on our heads, then we know the youth alert program is definitely gone. So that is going to make institutions that are supposed to deliver on their mandate very weak, and also lacks confidence.
Then what's the solution? Because especially, for example, now with the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, of course, this came as a result of the president saying that, you know what, the current agencies mandated to fight corruption could need help, or they're not working as well as they should be. So if these institutions are not working well, then what's the solution if the solution is not to take this, kind of arms to State House?
And you see, that's what has been my biggest disappointment. Last year, by September, government came up and said, we're going to rationalize agencies. Everybody said, thank you very much. But immediately after that, then we're going to set up another unit in the State House on anti-corruption. And I think that's not the right way to help institutions deliver. Why are we saying the IGG is not doing her job? Which I believe actually that these people are doing their job. For example, they need a forensic laboratory to be able to dig these high crime jobs, and they don't have the money for that. And for you to solve that, you say, please let's bring a unit under State House. But then let me tell you, that unit in State House has no legal mandate to arrest or prosecute anybody. All they will do is to look out people, bring them to the IGG for prosecution. But it is quite very important that the government really rationalizes these agencies, reduce on the evacuation of these districts, so that you can have some resources to pump into development. Do you know more than 85% of the money we send to the districts is in form of salaries and non-wage, wage and non-wage?
Right.
So no money for development at all.
So if we're to talk about the fact that, as you mentioned, Angie raised, State House shouldn't be the place where a few of these projects should be going, yes? Which organization, which authority do you think would be the best to actually handle a number of these things?
I mean, a youth library program should stay with Ministry of Gender, because they have the mandate, they have the expertise. It is a social development sector. That's where it's supposed to be. So you can't, for example, say, I'm going to shift National Medical Stores, I shift it from Ministry of Health and I take it to State House. It's crazy. You take institutions to their mother ministries, because those mother ministries have been formed, have been trained, have the capacity and the structure to deliver. The challenge we have is that when we don't deliver, then we say, no, we are going to pull you out, or we are going to create a different autonomous agency. And that has been the disease in this country. There are certain agencies that need autonomy. Civil Aviation Authority, you will never touch it. But you can't create Uganda Revenue Authority, you can't touch it. But you can't create Uganda National Road Fund, UNRA, the Uganda National Road Fund, but also there's UNRA. What UNRA does is project management. If they had a grader and they are constructing roads every day, I would not bother about it. But the work they do is the work that the Ministry of Works would be doing. And as such, we are spending money on them. Right. It would have saved it to construct more roads in this country. Okay,
let's look at the winners and losers of, of course, the proposed framework, budget framework for 19-20. These are the financial years 2019-2020. And of course, works and transport still takes the day. We have, like you said, the second share goes to debt servicing, and also we have education as well. Now, let's look at accountability, because this is where every single thing, of course, boils down to. You're saying that, agencies are not working because we don't have accountability structures. Even, let's not just blame government as well. Even in private sector, things don't move because there's that aspect of lack of accountability. So this that has been, allocated to accountability, do you think it could have been given something, maybe a bigger share or something?
I mean, accountability, their budget was 1.1 trillion, now it's 1.2 trillion, a slight improvement. What we are missing in this country, I think, is our financing accountability structures very adequately. I told you the Inspector General of Government, for example, right now, they need a forensic laboratory. They don't have it, so it's difficult for them to investigate these complicated cases. I don't know if one of you ever gone to police, if your phone has ever been stolen, or you know what it takes for them to just develop a case for you. It's completely very difficult. These people are not. We don't have even a machine to track our phones if your phone is stolen. This is very extremely difficult. I understand they only have one, which is at CMI. it's very difficult that a phone is stolen and it just can't be tracked immediately. These simple things. You go to see, you go to the DPP, you can see some of the cases they have lost simply because they did not do enough work, groundwork, to investigate the case properly. I would love to see more funding go to these institutions to recover the money that is stolen or to have value for money.
Okay.
Yes. And as we talk about all of this in regards to the framework of it all, let's talk about the citizen. Because with all the cuts here and there, the things that affect me, the things that affect you who's watching, the things that also affect you, in regards to education, in regards to health, where does it leave us? Because if our top priority is public debt, as it stands right now, of course and something else as well, the works and transport, but where does it leave me who's paying these taxes? Yes.
First of all, we should pay taxes, despite the challenges. Let's pay taxes. Literally as it is, pay your tax. Then follow your tax. I have told all the people I've worked with and the people the ordinary person, go to that health center, because the president is not going to go there, neither the permanent secretary nor the minister. It is your health center. Go there and see how that health center is functioning. Go to that school and see whether the headmaster, literally as the money is coming, but monitor that money to ensure that it actually does the small thing that is supposed to be done.
Right.
That's what I tell citizens all the time. Yes, we have got cuts. Social sectors, for example, if you get agriculture, if you get health, if you get water, all those sectors, we have seen that if you put their budgets together, there has been a cut by 22%. It's a huge amount of money that has been cut, especially for water. I really don't know what happened in that particular sector. So, citizens, please just look out. The little money that comes to your area, your health center, to your school, to the road, to the water point, make sure those things are functioning.
Right.
It is your responsibility, not any other person, for that particular money.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So you've been told, you know what, pay your taxes, but follow it as well.
Follow it as well.
Very important conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Julius Mukunda, the ED of Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. We all know it as CS Bank. They'll be having a conversation as well still today here on NTV. So be sure to follow through that conversation because it matters to you. Morning at NTV still continues. Up next is Reality on the Ground with David Rukasi. Don't go too far.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Play and win every 10 minutes. For every 1,000 you spend, it gives you one entry into the jackpot this Sunday.
On MTN, simply dial *165*33#. That's *165*33#. Then enter your 3 lucky numbers. Then